year, thousands of women vanish. Some are taken, some simply disappear without explanation. And far too many are never found. Their faces flash across posters, their names whisper in the news reports, but behind each case is a family shattered, community left with questions, and a silence that's deafening. These are not just stories of loss, they are stories of stolen futures, of justice still waiting. Today we're going to be talking about a missing and the disappeared. Women whose voices we must not allow to fade. When they go missing, it's more than just a headline. It's a fracture in their family, a wound in the community, and a story that demands answers. JoJo Boswell. Her disappearance is heartbreaking on its own, but it also represents something much larger. JoJo is one of the countless Indigenous women whose cases have slipped through the cracks, whose names are rarely spoken in the same breath as the high-profile cases that dominates the news. Behind each of these stories is a life cut short, family still searching, and the truth that refuses to stay buried. She was only 19, a daughter, an artist, a young woman with dreams still unfolding. On a warm July afternoon, JoJo Boswell walked away with a stranger and vanished without a trace. It's been nearly 20 years, and her family has been left with silence, questions, and heartbreak. This is more than just a story of a young woman's disappearance. It's a story of a community that failed to find her, of a crisis too many Indigenous families know far too well. This is the disappearance of JoJo Boswell. A small town in Minnesota, a summer afternoon in July, a young woman just 19 years old who would never be seen again. JoJo was born on September 1st, 1985. She was a Native American woman with brown hair, brown eyes, and a warm, creative spirit. She was the youngest of 3 daughters to her family. She was more than just a little sister. They remember her as a bright spark, a girl who loved to draw, who could lose herself in music, and who danced with a kind of joy that filled the air. She loved drawing, dancing, and music. Those who knew her said she was full of life and expression. JoJo belonged to the White Earth Band of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe, a heritage that shaped who she was and the community that she carried with her. Her family still shares small but precious memories of her childhood. They talk about her laughter, her gentle spirit, even simple moments, like the way she insisted on feeding herself green beans as a toddler, determined to do it her own way. But as she grew older, life became more complicated. She didn't always have a permanent home, but she carried with her the love of art, music, and family that had defined her since childhood. Now, at the time she disappeared, JoJo was described as standing between 5'5" and 5'10", weighed around 130 to 140 pounds. She had distinctive features: a mole on her left side of her face, light freckles, a scar on her right cheek, and a long surgical scar about 8 inches on her arm. On July 11th, 2005, she was, just like I said, 19 years old. That morning, JoJo was released from Steele County Jail in Owatonna, Minnesota. Records show she had been arrested for theft, though the details about her case remains really vague. She had only been there for a short time on a misdemeanor charge, and when she walked out, she carried nothing but what was on her back. After her release, a deputy drove her to a nearby convenience store. From there, accounts began to conflict. JoJo told her mother she was planning to go to Minnesota. In the days leading up to her disappearance, she had been spending time around 31st Avenue and 4th Avenue, a neighborhood she was known to frequent. Later, reports place her walking in front of Mills Fleet Farm, just off Interstate 35, sometime between 2:30 and 3:30 p.m. Witnesses said an unidentified individual walked up to her. The two began talking, and then they walked away together. That July afternoon marks the last confirmed sighting of JoJo. From that moment on, she was never seen again. Her family immediately knew something was wrong. JoJo had always kept in touch, no matter where she was staying. For her to vanish without a word, without a trace, was completely out of character for her. And then, just 3 days later, tragedy deepened. On July 14th, JoJo's mother reported her missing. For her family, it was the beginning of a nightmare that had lasted for nearly 2 decades. What was happening after she left with that unknown person? It remains a mystery. Authorities launched an investigation, but early efforts turned up nothing. No confirmed sightings, no evidence that she was ever in Minnesota. Her trail had simply went cold. Despite occurring in a town of roughly 26,000 people, one less has ever come forward with a clear answers. No confirmed witnesses, no explanation of who the stranger was, and no sign of JoJo. Her case quickly faded from the public's attention. And her family, like so many others, had been left with silence. JoJo's disappearance isn't just about a young woman, it's about a pattern. JoJo's disappearance highlighted more than just one woman lost. It speaks a larger crisis, epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women. Many of those stories have gone unheard. Her family believes her case didn't receive the attention it deserved because of her Native American heritage. And unfortunately, they may be right. Across North America, countless families have spoken out about the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, cases that are too often unreported, under-investigated, and just plainly overlooked. And sadly, the story of JoJo is one of them. JoJo's disappearance is not an isolated tragedy. Her story is one part of the devastating crisis that has haunted the communities for generations. Across the United States and Canada, Indigenous women and girls are reported missing or murdered at rates of higher than the national average. According to the advocacy groups, Native American women are up to 10 times more likely to be murdered than the rest of the population. Many vanish without a trace. Their cases underreported, under-investigated, or simply ignored by the mainstream media. Families like JoJo are often left to do the searching themselves. The organizing vigils plaster photos on the walls and lampposts, beg for coverage, and fight for justice that are too often feels out of reach. For them, the pain never ends. Every day without answers is another wound. And yet, this epidemic remains largely invisible to the wider world. JoJo case receives very little coverage in 2005. Almost 2 decades later, her name still missing from most headlines, like countless others whose story have slipped through the cracks. But to her family, to her community, and to the advocates across the country, JoJo matters. Every missing Indigenous woman matters. Their lives, their future, and their dreams deserve the same urgency and the same resources and the same attention as anyone else. JoJo's disappearance is not only a mystery, it's a reminder of how many families are still waiting, still searching, still demanding answers, and news coverage. Every Indigenous woman matters. When JoJo disappeared in 2005, her case barely made the news. Her family pleaded for attention, but very few reporters came. Almost no national outlets ever covered her story. Sadly, this pattern of Indigenous women across North America vanish at alarming rates, yet their stories are often ignored, left out of the headlines, and pushed aside by major networks, like their life meant nothing. Now think about the case of Gabby Petito in 2021, a young white woman missing after a cross-road country trip. Within days, her story dominated every network and filled every feed. Millions followed her update, every clue, every theory. The nation stopped to watch. So why didn't JoJo's case, and thousands like hers, get the same urgency? Advocates call this missing white women syndrome. It's painful reality that white women, particularly those who fit a certain image, receive disproportionate media coverage and investigative resources, while women of color, especially Indigenous women, are often overlooked. This isn't about taking away from Gabby or her family. Her case deserved the attention it got. Every missing person deserves that same care, that same focus. The problem is, not everyone receives it. JoJo Boswell's disappearance is just one reminder of how many families, Native, Black, Latina, are forced to fight for even a fraction of the coverage. They are left with unanswered questions, fading posters, and a quiet ache of being forgotten. We talk about the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women. We're not saying that the cases of the missing white women, like Gabby Petito, aren't important. They are. Every missing person deserves attention. Every family deserves answers. The truth is, everyone is important. Every life, every story, every voice is important. And here at Crime and Chaos, we believe it too. JoJo's case matters. JoJo matters. And so do thousands and thousands of others who are still waiting for justice. If JoJo was alive today, she would be 40 years old. But for her family and those who care about her and the case, there's still no closure, only questions. Who was the man that's seen with her that day? Did anyone in the community recognize him? And why, in nearly 2 decades, has no one come forward with the truth or information? Someone somewhere knows what happened to JoJo that July afternoon in 2005. JoJo Boswell's story is not just about one woman who vanished. It's about all countless women and girls whose names had never made the headlines. And JoJo, she deserves to be remembered, not as a statistic, but as a daughter, an artist, and a young woman whose life that did matter. And it matters to us here at Crime and Chaos. Police department is investigating JoJo's disappearance, but if you have any information, please call them at 612-673-5373. Let's bring her home, along with many others of the missing women. So what do you think? Was JoJo's case overlooked because who she was? Do you believe someone that holds the key to the truth? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like to see more cases covered by Care and Respect, don't forget to subscribe. That's it for this one. So take care and stay aware. As always, I'll be on the next case. Bye for now.